There is a quiet moment in every person's life when they realize something they have been trying very hard not to admit. They look at the years behind them, the promises they made to themselves, the plans they wrote down, the mornings they said would be different, and suddenly they wonder where all the time went. It isn't that they never wanted success. They wanted it badly. They imagined the money, the freedom, the respect, the better life. But wanting something and becoming the kind of person capable of carrying it are two entirely different things. And perhaps the most painful truth is this: the thing standing between you and the life you keep imagining may not be your circumstances, your luck, your intelligence, or even your opportunities. It may be something much closer. Lies in the small things. Something you encounter every morning when you wake up. Most people spend their lives waiting for the feeling that will finally make them move. They wait to feel motivated. They wait to feel confident. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the perfect plan, the perfect season, the perfect amount of money, the perfect relationship, the perfect version of themselves. And while they are waiting, life keeps moving without asking their permission. Days become weeks. Weeks become years. The dream doesn't disappear all at once. That would be too obvious. It fades quietly, one postponed decision at a time. One more morning in bed. One more promise to start tomorrow. One more hour wasted on something that gives temporary comfort but leaves permanent regret. And eventually, a person doesn't lose their dream because someone took it away. They lose it because they became comfortable living without it. You see, success is rarely destroyed by one enormous mistake. More often, it is slowly strangled by ordinary habits that don't look dangerous when you practice them for one day. One day of procrastination seems harmless. One day of distraction seems harmless. One day of choosing comfort over discipline seems harmless. But life is not built from isolated days. Life is built from repeated days. And what you repeat becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes how you behave. And how you behave consistently becomes the architecture of your life. That's why the hidden reason so many people never succeed is not that they don't have dreams. It is that they repeatedly choose the immediate emotion over the future reward. They choose what feels good now over what would make them proud later. Think about how often you have known exactly what you needed to do and still didn't do it. You knew you needed to wake up earlier. You knew you needed to learn the skill. You knew you needed to make the call. You knew you needed to stop spending money you didn't have. You knew you needed to leave the relationship that was draining you. You knew you needed to exercise, read, build, create, study, practice, and begin. The information was never the problem. You already knew. The real battle was between the person you were and the person you said you wanted to become. And that battle is rarely dramatic. It happens silently, inside your mind, in the few seconds between knowing and doing. That tiny space is where entire futures are decided. There is a strange thing about comfort. It rarely tells you that it is destroying your potential. It tells you that you deserve a break. It tells you that tomorrow will be better. It tells you that you have worked hard enough. It tells you that other people have advantages you don't have. It tells you that you should wait until you feel ready. Comfort doesn't scream. Comfort whispers. And because it sounds reasonable, intelligent, and compassionate, you listen to it. But every time you obey that whisper, you teach your mind something. You teach yourself that your feelings are stronger than your commitments. You teach yourself that discomfort is a signal to stop instead of a doorway to growth. Eventually, you don't even need comfort to convince you anymore. You automatically run toward it. And then something even more dangerous happens. You begin protecting the identity you have created. You become attached to the story of why you cannot succeed. Maybe you tell yourself that you were unlucky. Maybe you say your family didn't support you. Maybe you blame the economy, your education, your location, your age, your past, your lack of connections, or the people who hurt you. Some of those things may be real. Life can be unfair. People can betray you. Opportunities can disappear. Circumstances can absolutely make the road harder. But there comes a moment when explanation becomes a prison. The past may explain where you are standing, but it does not have to decide where you walk next. At some point, responsibility becomes freedom. The moment you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin asking, what can I do from here? Your life starts to change. Perhaps you've been waiting for someone to rescue you from your own life. Not consciously. You may never say it that way. But somewhere inside, you may be hoping for the person who finally believes in you, the opportunity that changes everything, the video that suddenly goes viral, the business idea that makes you rich, the relationship that heals your loneliness, the lucky break that removes the struggle. And there is nothing wrong with hoping for good things. But hope becomes dangerous when it replaces action. Because the life you want cannot be built by waiting for someone else to make you feel ready. At some point, you have to become the person who stops asking for permission. You have to decide that even if nobody applauds, you will continue. Even if nobody notices, you will continue. Even if the first attempt fails, you will continue. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They imagine discipline as punishment. They think disciplined people somehow don't feel fear, laziness, doubt, loneliness, or temptation. They imagine that successful people wake up every morning inspired and powerful. No, they feel the same resistance you feel. They have mornings when they don't want to work. They have days when their confidence disappears. They have moments when the dream feels too far away. The difference is not that they never experience resistance. The difference is that they stopped negotiating with it. They learned that feelings are real, but feelings are not always instructions. You can feel afraid and still move. You can feel tired and still keep your promise. You can feel uncertain and still take the next step. And perhaps this is the part nobody wants to hear. You may have to disappoint the version of yourself that wants an easy life. You may have to say no when everyone else says yes. You may have to walk away from conversations that keep you small. You may have to spend your evenings learning while other people are entertaining themselves. You may have to wake up while the world sleeps. You may have to be in the small things. You may have to be misunderstood. You may have to work for months without recognition. You may have to build something that nobody believes in until the results become impossible to ignore. Growth often feels lonely because you are leaving behind behaviors that once helped you belong. But there is a difference between being alone and being lost. Sometimes solitude is simply the space where your old identity dies quietly enough for a new one to emerge. There is another hidden enemy, and it is comparison. You look at someone else's life and measure your beginning against their middle. You see their success, but not their sacrifices. You see the house, but not the years of work. You see the confidence, but not the failures that built it. You see the result, but not the repetition. And then you look at yourself and conclude that you are behind. But behind whom? According to what clock? Life becomes miserable when you use someone else's timeline to judge your own worth. Your responsibility is not to become somebody else. Your responsibility is to become more capable than you were yesterday. Read one more page. Learn one more skill. Make one more attempt. Save a little more. Practice a little longer. Become slightly wiser. Small improvements seem insignificant until time reveals what consistency has been quietly constructing. You also need to understand why people sabotage themselves when success begins getting close. Sometimes the problem isn't failure. Sometimes the problem is that success threatens the identity you are comfortable with. If you've spent years saying, I'm not disciplined, then becoming disciplined requires you to abandon that story. If you've always been the person who quits, then finishing requires you to become unfamiliar with yourself. If you've always needed approval, then independent action feels frightening. Your subconscious mind often prefers familiar pain to unfamiliar growth. That's why people return to the same habits, the same relationships, the same distractions, even when they know those things are hurting them. Familiarity feels safe, but safe is not always healthy. Sometimes the cage feels comfortable simply because you've lived inside it long enough. And this is where emotional maturity enters the conversation. You cannot build a powerful life while constantly running from uncomfortable emotions. You will feel rejected. You will feel lonely. You will feel embarrassed. Someone will underestimate you. Someone may walk away. Someone may not believe in you. You may work hard and still fail. You may give your best effort and receive no recognition. If every painful emotion becomes a reason to retreat, your future will always be controlled by your past. But if you learn to sit with discomfort without immediately escaping it, something extraordinary happens. You discover that pain is not always a command to stop. Sometimes pain is simply evidence that you are expanding beyond an old version of yourself. Maybe there is something you have been avoiding for years because you are afraid of what it will reveal about you. Perhaps you've been afraid to start because failure would prove the doubts you secretly carry. Perhaps you've been afraid to commit because commitment removes the excuse of, I could have. Perhaps you've been afraid to succeed because success would demand more responsibility than failure does. Failure can be explained away. Success has to be maintained. Success requires you to keep becoming. It asks more from you tomorrow than it did yesterday. And that is why some people unconsciously remain at the edge of their potential. They can dream without responsibility. They can imagine without being tested. They can talk about what they could become without ever having to discover what they actually are capable of. But you don't need to know the entire road. You only need enough courage for the next step. This is one of the greatest secrets of transformation. You don't change your life by solving your entire life in one afternoon. You change it by changing what you repeatedly do today. If your finances are broken, take one responsible financial action. If your body is neglected, take one physical action. If your mind is weak, read something that strengthens it. If your skills are outdated, learn. If your relationships are unhealthy, establish a boundary. If your dream has been abandoned, return to it quietly. You don't need a dramatic announcement. You don't need to tell everyone that your life is changing. Sometimes the strongest transformation begins in complete silence. There will be days when nobody notices. Let them pass. There will be days when your progress seems invisible. Keep going. There will be mornings when the old version of you whispers that nothing has changed. Don't argue with it. Work anyway, because results have a strange timetable. A seed spends a long time underground before anyone sees anything happening. That doesn't mean nothing is happening. Your habits are becoming stronger. Your standards are changing. Your mind is becoming more disciplined. Your tolerance for distraction is shrinking. Your confidence is becoming less dependent on applause. And one day, people may look at you and call it sudden success. But you will know better. You will remember the ordinary mornings when you chose discipline while nobody was watching. You must also become careful about the people you allow to define what is possible. Some people don't hate you. They simply cannot imagine a life outside the limits they have accepted for themselves. So when you speak about your dream, they give you their fear disguised as advice. They tell you to be realistic, lies in the small things. They remind you of everything that could go wrong. Sometimes they are trying to protect you. Sometimes they are protecting their own worldview. Either way, you must learn to listen without surrendering your direction. Not every opinion deserves equal authority over your future. Take wisdom where you find it. But remember, nobody else has to live the consequences of your choices. You do. So eventually, you must become responsible for deciding what kind of life deserves your effort. And don't confuse confidence with certainty. You will rarely feel completely ready. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. Confidence is the willingness to act while doubt is present. You become confident by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you say you will do something and then do it, you strengthen self-trust. Every time you make a commitment and abandon it, you weaken that trust. This is why your private behavior matters so much. Nobody may know whether you kept your promise to yourself this morning. But you know, your subconscious knows. And over time, that private knowledge becomes your self-image. You either become a person who trusts yourself or a person who constantly needs external motivation. Because internally, you don't believe your own promises anymore. So start there. Not with a massive goal. Start by rebuilding your relationship with your own word. If you say you will wake up at a certain time, do it. If you say you will work for an hour, work for an hour. If you say you will stop wasting money, stop. If you say you will study, study. If you say you will create, create. These things may look small, but they are not small. You are teaching your mind that your decisions have weight. You are building character through repetition, and character is the invisible force behind every visible achievement. Money can reveal your habits. Success can amplify your personality. Opportunity can expose your preparation. But character determines what you do when nobody is watching and when nobody is coming to save you. There is a beautiful freedom that comes when you stop needing your circumstances to be perfect. You begin to understand that you can be grateful and ambitious at the same time. D. Kings. You can appreciate what you have without becoming satisfied with what you have become. You can love people without allowing them to control your direction. You can experience disappointment without becoming bitter. You can experience loneliness without becoming desperate. You can lose something without losing yourself. This is emotional strength. It is not becoming cold. It is becoming steady. The small things. It is learning that your emotions can move through you without taking control of the steering wheel. And perhaps the greatest transformation happens when you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone. The need to prove yourself can consume an entire life. You chase money so people will respect you. You chase success so someone who rejected you will regret it. You build your body so someone will notice. You achieve so someone from your past will finally see your worth. But eventually, you discover something painful. If your entire life is built as a response to someone else, they are still controlling you. Real freedom begins when the goal is no longer revenge, approval, or validation. You begin building because you respect yourself. You begin growing because you are curious about who you could become. You begin succeeding because you want to honor the potential you were given. That is when success becomes different. It stops being a trophy and becomes a consequence. You don't chase success directly. You build the person, the habits, the knowledge, the discipline, and the character that makes success increasingly difficult to avoid. You become more valuable. You become more reliable. You become more useful. You become more patient. You become more capable of delaying pleasure. You become willing to endure temporary discomfort for permanent improvement. And slowly, almost invisibly, your life begins responding to the person you have become. New opportunities find you because you are prepared. Better relationships become possible because your standards have changed. Better decisions become natural because your mind has strengthened. Now ask yourself a question that may make you uncomfortable. If your life remained exactly as it is today for the next 5 years, would you be proud of where you ended up? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Imagine the same habits, the same distractions, the same excuses, the same people, the same spending, the same sleep schedule, the same fear, the same unfinished goals. 5 years from now, those small choices would not look small anymore. They would look like a life. And that is why today matters. Not because today must be extraordinary, but because today is another vote for the person you are becoming. Every decision casts a vote. You don't need to become perfect. You need to become intentional. You will still make mistakes. You will still have weak days. You will sometimes fall back into old habits. Don't turn one bad day into an identity. Get up, correct yourself, continue. The person who succeeds is not the person who never falls. It is the person who refuses to make falling a permanent address. You can lose a day without losing your future. You can fail at something without becoming a failure. You can be rejected without becoming unworthy. You can begin late without being finished. As long as you are still willing to take responsibility for the next decision, the story is not over. And maybe you've been waiting for motivation when what you actually need is a decision. Motivation is wonderful, but motivation is temporary. A decision can survive a bad mood. A decision can survive criticism. A decision can survive uncertainty. There comes a moment when you stop saying, I hope I can change, and begin saying, I am changing. Not someday, not when everything improves now. Quietly, imperfectly, one action at a time. Because your future does not need another promise. Your future needs evidence. Give it evidence today. The hidden reason most people never succeed is not that they were born without potential. It is that they repeatedly abandon their potential for temporary comfort. They wait for permission. They wait for confidence. They wait for someone to believe in them. They wait for the fear to disappear. They wait for life to become easier. But life may never become easy in the way you imagine. What changes is you. You become stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more emotionally mature, more capable of carrying what you once prayed for. And suddenly, the same mountain that once looked impossible becomes the mountain you know how to climb. So if you have been disappointed with yourself, don't turn that disappointment into self-hatred. Use it as awareness. If you have wasted years, don't waste another year grieving the years you wasted. If you have failed repeatedly, don't let failure become your identity. If someone abandoned you, don't abandon yourself too. If nobody believes in your dream, you can still take the next step. You don't need the whole world behind you. You need enough courage to stop standing against yourself. Sometimes the person you have been waiting for is not coming. Sometimes that is the beginning of your freedom. One day, you may look back at this period of your life and realize that the struggle was not merely something you survived. It was the place where you were rebuilt. The loneliness taught you self-reliance. The rejection taught you self-respect. The failures taught you humility. The waiting taught you patience. The uncertainty taught you courage. The discipline taught you freedom. And the days when nobody noticed you taught you the most important lesson of all. You can continue without applause. That is real power. Not making everyone notice you. Not becoming famous. Not proving that you were right. Real power is being able to sit quietly with yourself and know that you are doing what you said you would do. It is waking up with a clear conscience. It is knowing that even if the results are not here yet, the person responsible for producing them is being built. It is becoming someone you can trust. And when you trust yourself, you don't need to chase the world quite so desperately. You can walk with patience because you know where you are going. So tomorrow morning, when that familiar voice tells you to wait, recognize it. When it tells you that you deserve another day of comfort, recognize it. When it tells you that one more distraction won't matter, recognize it. When it tells you that you're too late, recognize it. And then do one thing your future self will thank you for. Not 10 things. Not 100. One. Then another tomorrow. Then another the day after that. Let your life become proof that small decisions, repeated long enough, can completely change a human being. You are not behind. You are not finished. You are not disqualified because you made mistakes. But you must stop asking your future to become different while continuing to live exactly the same way. Something has to change, and that something begins with you, not with the economy, not with luck, not with another person, not with the perfect opportunity. With your next decision, your next habit, your next hour, your next promise kept. And when you finally understand that, something inside you becomes quiet. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop needing everyone to understand. You stop measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. You stop asking whether you are capable of changing your entire life today. Instead, you ask a much more powerful question. What can I do today that the person I want to become would be proud of? Then you do it. And tomorrow, you ask again. Perhaps that is the hidden truth you were searching for. Success was never hiding from you. You were being prepared for it. Every difficult season was asking you to develop something. Every setback was asking you to become more resilient. Every temptation was asking you to strengthen your discipline. Every moment of doubt was asking you to decide who you would be when certainty disappeared. The door may have been there for a long time. The real question was whether you were becoming strong enough to walk through it and stay there. So don't leave this moment inspired and then return to the same life tomorrow. Inspiration without action becomes another form of entertainment. Let this be different. Choose one thing. Make it specific. Make it uncomfortable to matter and simple enough to begin. Then begin before your mind has time to negotiate with you, because sometimes your greatest breakthrough does not arrive as a dramatic opportunity. Sometimes it arrives disguised as an ordinary decision you finally refuse to postpone. And years from now, when you look back, you may discover that your life did not change on the day you became more talented. Lies in the small things. It changed on the day you became more disciplined. It changed on the day you stopped negotiating with every uncomfortable feeling. It changed on the day you stopped waiting for someone else to validate you. It changed on the day you decided that your circumstances could influence you without controlling you. It changed on the day you realized that nobody was coming to live your life for you. And instead of being frightened by that truth, you became empowered by it. Your life is still being written. The page in front of you is still blank enough to matter. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you can refuse to repeat it. You cannot control everything that happens, but you can control the person you become in response. You cannot guarantee success, but you can become the kind of person who keeps learning, keeps working, keeps adjusting, keeps getting back up. And perhaps that is what success really is. Not reaching a place where nothing goes wrong, but becoming someone who can face what goes wrong without losing direction. So take a breath. Forgive yourself for what you did not know. Release the version of yourself that needed everything to be easy. Thank the old version of you for surviving long enough to bring you here. Then let that version rest. You have somewhere to go now. There are habits to build, skills to learn, promises to keep, boundaries to establish, fears to face, and dreams that deserve another chance. And if nobody sees the beginning, let them miss it. If nobody applauds the discipline, let them stay silent. If nobody understands the transformation, you don't need to explain it. Build quietly, grow deeply, become undeniable through consistency. Let your results speak later. Let your character speak now, because the life you want is not waiting for a more perfect version of you. It is waiting for the version of you who finally decides to begin. And if these words found you at a moment when you needed them, don't let them disappear when this video ends. Carry one idea with you. Your future is being shaped by what you repeatedly choose when nobody is watching. Protect those choices. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Protect your standards. And most importantly, protect the promises you make to yourself. Thank you for spending these moments here. If this message reached something deeper than motivation, if it reminded you of the person you know you are capable of becoming, stay with this journey. Subscribe, not simply for another video, but for another reminder that your life can change when your decisions change. And when you are ready, come back for the next journey. There is still more of your potential waiting to be discovered. For now, go quietly, do the work, keep your promise, and let tomorrow meet a slightly stronger version of you than the one it met today.